Well, good evening and welcome to the Cambridge Union. I know lots of you here are first years. On behalf of our President, Oliver Mosley, and the Standing Committee, I would like to welcome you to Cambridge and welcome to the Cambridge Union. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. Before I go on to the exciting bit of introducing our speaker for today, I unfortunately have a few very boring announcements to make. I will keep them short, please bear with. As you all know, the way the union works is that we elect our officers termly, and our officers for next term are currently in the process of inviting speakers for their debates and speaker events. To this end, we have 4 subcommittees that run concurrently and help us run a term. Treasurer's Committee is responsible for sending out invitations to potential sponsors to help fund the union. This is being run by Charlotte Petter, our Treasurer-elect. She can be reached at treasurerelect@cus.org. Treasurer's Committee takes place every Friday at 5 p.m. So if you're keen to contribute to sponsorship, do drop Charlotte a message and do get involved. Debates Committee is the forum through which we invite speakers for our debates every term. So we have about 8 debates planned next term, and this is being run by the Executive Officer-elect, Catherine Regler. You can reach her at executiveelect@cus.org. Debates Committee is every Saturday at 5 p.m. Speakers Committee is the forum through which we invite speakers like the speaker you're about to see now. Single speaker events. This is being run by Joshua Ellis. He can be reached at speakerselect@cus.org, and Speakers Committee takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. Some of you may remember in Lent term, the union hosted the Bicentenary Ball to celebrate our 200th anniversary, and following on from this, we will be hosting a spring ball in Lent term. This will be run by the ENTS officer for Lent term, Ash Nandi. She can be reached at entselect@cus.org. There is an introductory meeting for anyone who's interested in getting involved in the spring ball committee. This will be on Monday, the 12th of October at 5 p.m. in the bar. You don't need to sign up, you just need to turn up, and if you're interested at all in running the spring ball committee, Ash will be there to answer your questions. That is all in terms of notices, and now to the exciting bit. The speaker who we are about to welcome today needs obviously no introduction. He's probably most famous for his role as Ted Mosby in the popular American sitcom How I Met Your Mother. In addition to his work on How I Met Your Mother, he has done critically acclaimed work behind the camera, writing, starring, and directing in Happythankyoumoreplease and Liberal Arts. He most recently starred in a debut Broadway play called Disgraced. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and join me in welcoming the legend that is Josh Radnor.
So great. I have 2 microphones. I've never been more mic'd in my life. What's up? Can everyone hear me?
I'm supposed to ask the questions actually,
No.
but that's okay.
It's great to be here. Hi, everyone. 200th anniversary of this thing?
Yes, 200 years.
Congrats. I'm glad to be a part of the 200th.
And we are very glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for coming all the way to Cambridge.
Yeah.
And it is such a pleasure to welcome you here as part of our 200th anniversary. This is actually open period at the union, so lots of people here are not members yet. And this is one of those events where we're hoping to persuade them to join the union.
What's it mean to be a part of the union?
Well, the union is...
Are you guys like, don't ask him that? It's going to go on forever.
So the union is one of the largest student society in Cambridge. We have invited very prominent speakers such as yourself to address our members in the past. So
yeah,
it is a very fascinating opportunity to be a part of in an unbiased way, obviously. Okay. So to start off the discussion here, I know that almost everyone here wants to talk to you about How I Met Your Mother, and we will also talk about How I Met Your Mother. But you've obviously done a lot of things apart from How I Met Your Mother.
I've done other things.
So I wanted to kind of start off by talking to you about those things,
cool,
which I'm sure you'd be interested to talk about. So in an interview with Time magazine, almost just a few months ago actually, you said that you were fighting to get people to see you in a different way. Now, ever since How I Met Your Mother, you moved away from TV into Broadway, and you debuted that with the Broadway play called Disgraced. So my first question is, what went into the decision to go back into Broadway, and why do you think Broadway, and in particular this play, would help you shake off Ted Mosby?
Oh, there I am.
Yes, there you are.
I look drunk. Well, I think that there's an idea that actors have, like, I know exactly what I'm going to do next, and that's not really been the case with me, and I don't know a lot of people. What's happening?
It's all fine, don't worry.
Is that really?
Yeah, it's all fine. I think it's all fine, Florian. All fine.
Okay. I think there's this idea that I'm looking out and I'm just like, what will I choose to do next? And really what happened was I was driving with a friend back from Northern California, and I got a call from the playwright of Disgraced, who'd been a friend of mine because I was a fan of his novel and we had become friendly, and he said, do you want to do my play on Broadway? And I said, yeah. And it just so happened that it was this great Pulitzer Prize winning play with this part that was very different and exciting and very un-Mosby-ish, and so then I'm just kind of feeling my way through and feeling like, okay, I don't want to do that because that feels like something I've done, but what really happens is you have to say yes to things that scare you to bust out of this idea. I always describe it like if you do a TV series for a really long time, it's like you're a piano player, but you're only allowed to hit a couple keys, and you're like, responding to Barney face is like really, you're hitting that key. And you're like, crazy romantic, slightly stocky gesture key is like, really, you're doing these things, and then you forget that you have all these other keys. Or I described it, I'm a metaphor person, but I described it like going to a gym every day, but you're only allowed to work out your right arm, and the rest of you kind of, gets a little atrophied. So that's not to say anything. I got to do a ton on the series, but my director, Pam Fryman, told me, right when we started, she said, you're not going to get everything you need artistically and creatively from this series. You're going to have to do other things. That's why I started writing and directing and doing all that. So I'm just, I don't have a master plan other than trying to stay creative and energized and sane.
I mean, talking about this film in particular, as you said, it's very un-Mosby-ish. It discusses themes such as Islamophobia, racial tensions, etc. And I was just wondering, that must have been quite a raw and emotional experience to play a role like that, particularly in the wake of things like 9/11, ISIS, etc. Yeah. And I was just wondering how you navigated that from after being Mosby for so long.
Well, I never thought of myself as like a straight up kind of comic actor. It was something that was
most of us did think so.
It was always something kind of that I thought I knew how to do, but it wasn't what I thought of myself as an actor. Like, I was never, I did, college improv and sketch comedy, but that wasn't where I never thought, oh, I'd really like to be on Saturday Night Live, although I think that would be exciting, but it wasn't my thing. I was a stage actor, and I did all sorts of plays, and then I just, I ended up on the show, which turned into this really big, great thing, but I never, it's not like I would look at a play like Disgraced, which has such weighty themes, and it would be a deterrent. For me, it was part of the I don't know if charm's the right word, but it was part of no, I want to do that. I want to go towards that because to me, that's what the theater does best. I mean, it's a captive audience, and you get to deal with things in a room, and you get to say things. I mean, there are things said in Disgraced that you just don't say in proper company, and that's part of why the play is so shocking and exciting for people. All those themes and all that stuff, that's, I want to be a part of something that feels urgent and vital. As far as it being hard for me, I always think there's this idea, it's harder for the audience than it is for me. I mean, I've rehearsed it and done it 100 times. I remember like when Jason Segel came and saw the show, he was so uncomfortable he was like sweating, and he was like grabbing his girlfriend's hand. And I was like, yeah, it's harder for him than it is for me. I've gone through it. So I want the audience to have the experience. I don't need to, rend my garments every night. I just do the play, and then I grab a meal afterwards.
So when you were on a TV show for as long as How I Met Your Mother, 9 years, 280 episodes. I suppose there's always this tug-of-war of trying to get involved in new and exciting projects, but at the same time remembering that perhaps those projects would not have been possible without the success of the show.
That's true. That's true. It's an interesting kind of paradox. I mean, it's hard to complain,
Of course not.
you know, but at the same time, it does present you with like new problems. Do you know what I mean? Like before, no one knew who I was, and that was kind of an interesting problem to have. But at the same time, I don't know if anyone saw, I directed a film called Liberal Arts, and by the way, being here is doing nothing to rid myself of my collegiate nostalgia, which is a problem. I love college, and I love being at colleges, and I just want to like curl up and read a book and talk about a book. But
You really should have gone to Cambridge then.
yeah, I wasn't even on. Are there Americans here, by the way? And you guys like got in?
Hey!
Yeah. Like how? What do you do? Just apply? And where are you from?
I'm from Wisconsin.
Oh, cool, Midwest. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but we're having a moment. What were we talking about?
We were talking about you trying to navigate your way between trying to get involved in all
Oh
these
yeah. So it's an interesting problem to have when no one knows you, but it's also it's kind of an intriguing and great problem because nothing's been said. Oh, I was talking about Liberal Arts, this film I directed, where he talked about the character that I played talked about being in college is just a state of infinite choices ahead of you. I mean, it could go any way. I mean, you're majoring something, you're kind of narrowing yourself, but nothing's been set yet. And then you get out of school and you make these choices, and these choices solidify your path a little bit more, or things start to materialize, and you're like, oh, I guess this is how it's happening. And there was a little bit of I don't know if it was a sadness or a kind of melancholy when I got on the show, and the show looked like it was really going to be a thing, even though I was so grateful for it. Hi. My friend's here, I just noticed her. They give you a really prominent seat. Yeah, she likes attention. I'm kidding. Even though, you know, I was so grateful for the show, there was also like this little sadness to like letting go of, like it didn't happen as like a Broadway thing or indie film thing. Like it happened on this, you know, multi-camera show, which people seem to really like. So, you know, it's an interesting thing because then you have to rebel against the thing that everyone knows you for, because people think, I mean, it's an amazing thing that even after all the backstage stuff and blooper reels, people still think you're a character doing things. Like they still think I kiss the Liberty Bell or have red cowboy boots or something. And it's like, no, I don't have those things. I was contractually obligated to act like I was that person. And it's, you know, but it's like of all the problems I could have in the world, it's a really good one to have. Like it's not, you know, it's not, as you know, like my diamond shoes are too tight. That was a phrase I learned from you, which I thought was funny. Yeah.
So talking about directing liberal arts, you obviously made your writing and directorial debut with Happy, Thank You, More Please. How did you deal with the transition from acting for so long in a comedy TV series and then going into writing and directing? And which, obviously you're a very versatile performer who can write, direct, act, but which do you prefer more and why? And is there, after How I Met Your Mother, an emphasis into going into more behind the scenes work as opposed to acting?
Well, I always get asked that question, and even I did some interviews before, and I was asked, like, you know, what are your favorite TV shows, or what are your favorite authors? And I kind of feel like it's like asking, like, who are your favorite people? And it's like, I like so many people. Like, I don't want to rank them. I feel that way a little bit about writing and directing and acting. I love all of it, and it was almost like if I do a comedy too long, I want to like do something more serious. If I'm doing something too serious, I want something lighter. I think it's just like a mercurial part of my personality, and I really like going from project to project and meeting new people. But no one's asking me to choose. I get to kind of do them all. The thing about starting to write and direct while I was on the show, which was so great, was there were parts of me that just weren't being used.
Right.
And I didn't know how to direct a movie. I just surrounded myself with really smart people who helped me with stuff I didn't understand. Right. But I knew how to direct that particular movie. I knew how to talk to actors. I knew what the tone was. Mm-hmm. I kind of considered myself the gatekeeper of the tone.
Right.
You know? And you know, it worked out, and I did another one, and I'm terrified every time I do it, but I think a novelist would say the same thing. Every time you start a new book, you have to teach yourself how to write that particular book. I also was a little, not disillusioned with acting, I'd just forgotten how much I loved it because I'd been doing this one thing for so long. And then I did a play that summer, I did a Richard Greenberg play, and then I did Disgraced, and then I just did this TV series that's on PBS that's going to be on after, I believe it's called Downton Abbey. Is that a show? Is it true you guys don't really like that show here?
I mean, you
have a complicated relationship with it, right? Like we Americans are like, oh, it's the greatest thing. But I had heard that. Is that true? Yes. Just nod silently.
Not really.
Or shaking. Some people love it, right? It's kind of great. But anyway, we're going to be on after that show. And it's a hospital series set in the Civil War. I had an enormous beard. For no other reason, you should tune in to see this beard. But I've suddenly, my point is I've fallen in love with acting again. And it's not something I want to give up. I had kind of had this idea like, oh, I'm now a writer-director, I guess. And my acting days, I remember those. And now I like it again. So I don't know.
Fantastic. Well, now I want to ask you about How I Met Your Mother.
All right.
And we're going to start by asking about the end of the show, which I'm sure many people here have opinions about.
But wait a second. There's a lot of you here who liked it. If you liked it and you feel brave enough, will you raise your hand?
I loved it.
Yeah. See? I'm not even going to ask who hated it, because I don't care.
So obviously, from the opinion in this room, the plot twist was controversial.
Yeah.
And the show took heat for it, you took heat for it, and continue to do so. I suppose my first question is, how do you think the finale has aged almost a year since, or more than a year actually, since the show has ended?
Well, I think a beloved show is impossible to end because people are upset it's ending anyway. So if, Ted and Tracy walked off...
You're just palming off the blame now.
What?
You're just palming off the blame now.
I didn't... Are you blaming me? I was a hired gun, guys. But I think if Ted and Tracy walked off into the sunset, I think people would say kind of a soft ending or, oh, that was a little lame. But if you look at the DNA of the show, which is all in the pilot, the whole pilot is about Robin, and then the kids go, wait, I thought this was about Mom. That's the whole series. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's in the pilot. It's like they buried these clues, and that's what it was. I always felt, when I read the finale script, I loved it so much. And then they cut a couple things that I thought would have helped soften the blow for the viewers. Like the kids had 6 years to process the death. You guys had 2 minutes. So it was a little jarring. I think there was people felt like whiplash a little bit narratively. But I think that, I think more than anything, it speaks to the fact that people really loved the show. And for that, I'm grateful, and that they're passionate about the show. I think in some ways, I actually read a piece someone sent me that was about, I think it's time to forgive the How I Met Your Mother finale or something like that, where they were actually looking and kind of unpacking all this stuff and saying, if you really spend some time with it, it's like a hard poem, right? Like when I read Wordsworth or something in college, it was like, and then you start reading it with I actually loved Wordsworth, someone a little tougher, but you start studying it and you have to kind of get under the skin of it a little bit. And I think that's what the show, there's a lot more depth going on, there's a lot more, Ted's obsession with the one, and it's kind of interesting that he had 2, I think it makes it resonant, and it makes it sad, and it makes it kind of more beautiful, and it makes you hate it a little more. I don't know. It's a complicated thing. I have stopped feeling like I have to defend it as much. For the first year, I was like, all right, here's my thesis about why it was great. And now I feel like, you know what? Some people didn't like it, and I think it means that they loved the show. I don't know. Let's go around the room and you'll just tell me one by one what you thought.
Talking about what you said about not being able always to please everyone, and you told the Huffington Post once that talking about the end of the show and your take on it and defending it, of course, you said that if you're going to do something new and bold and daring, you're going to inevitably upset some people and you're going to inevitably please others. I suppose my question is, as an actor, and more broadly, not just yourself, but actors in general, how important do you think your personal popularity is in terms of the work that you do? Because obviously you have loads of fans who followed you from the start of the show and who are very keen to perhaps see the show end in a certain way. And how did you navigate dealing with your script and what you were contractually obliged to do, and at the same time what you perhaps would have liked to have seen in reality?
That's a really great question, and I don't know how to answer it entirely. I mean, I guess what you're talking about is what are your obligations to the fans?
Exactly.
And a lot of people talk about how creators of shows now will be on, they'll read the websites and the comment threads, and the fans really weigh in on how the series goes. I don't know if that's great, or and it could be, it's kind of like crowdsourcing a narrative.
Okay.
And it's pretty it's an interesting idea, but I also wonder what things that we consider to be blazingly brilliant works of art would have been diluted by that process. You know, one of the things that we like and admire is like a singular vision that's not diluted. You know, one of the knocks against television is that there's too many chefs, you know, there's too many notes, there's a network studio. I don't know, I had a talk with my friend Ben Lee, who's a singer-songwriter, a terrific guy and a great musician, and we used to talk about this notion of like, how do you be both good and popular? Like, what is that? Because a lot of what is popular is terrible, and a lot of what is good, no one's paying attention to. But what's that sweet spot between good and popular? I had the great good fortune of being a show I think was both. But, you know, there's a lot of things I've been involved with that I wish had kind of tipped over a little bit more. And there's other things that were popular that I said I don't want to be a part of that because it doesn't resonate with my kind of artistic value system. So it's always an interesting negotiation. I don't like indulgent art that is all about like, I'm a creator and this is what I'm saying and I don't care what you think. Because I feel like, well, you're sitting here, I'd like you to enjoy some of this and reflect on your own life. I feel like, I don't know if you guys, I hope you have a chance to see Hamilton, this Broadway musical that is just one of the great things I've ever seen. And the word that I was left with at the end of it was, it just felt incredibly generous.
Right.
Like it felt like a gift to the audience, like this, here, this is for you, even though you understood how much went into making it. And that's my ideal kind of vision of art, that it's some sort of generous gift, and you have to keep the audience in mind. But at the same time, you want to challenge them. You know, you don't want to tamp something down or make it less. I mean, if you need you know, a certain kind of word to say what you need to say, and some people might not. I guess like Michael Chabon, the writer, like he always has a word every couple of pages that he wants you to go to the dictionary and look up. That sounds like something Ted Mosby would do. But but I think it's interesting to kind of say like, no, like I want you to come along, but I want you to have to work for it a little bit too. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, the stuff I've loved the most as an audience member is stuff that I had to work a little bit for. I had to earn, kind of have a truce with it to like say like, oh, this is tough to sit through. Or you know when you sit through movies and you're like, that was a long sit, and then 4 weeks later you're still thinking about it and it's kind of resonating as this amazing work of art, but it was hard to sit through. So I don't know.
So my final question, actually, before we open it up to the audience, because I'm sure so many people here are interested to ask you about many things. So you've obviously developed so much as an actor and just as a person ever since How I Met Your Mother started.
Thanks,
to
man.
now. Yes, I am being complimentary.
Thanks.
But I suppose my question is, looking back, say, to the start of the show in 2005, and if you look back and if you had to tell Josh Radnor something, what would you tell him? What is it about the industry you went into and that conceivably changed your life that you wish you'd known of before you went into it?
That's a great question. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You know, there's so much. It's not only about, you know, being on How I Met Your Mother. It also has to do with like, I love that kind of question. Like, what would you tell your younger self? And I think a lot of it is just like, calm down.
Okay.
Like, it's okay. Like, I still have to tell myself that. I mean, I I have fears. My big fear would be like whatever happened to so and so. Someone who couldn't kind of escape the shadow of the thing. And I feel like that's my motor on some level, and I don't know if that's a healthy motor all the time. But at the same time, you spend a lot of time worrying about all kinds of stuff. There was a writer, Greg Malins, who wrote on Friends, and he was How I Met Your Mother writer for years, terrific guy. And he used to say to me, don't pay attention to every episode, like, do I have enough lines? Do I have enough jokes? Do I have enough whatever? He said, the thing that a series is judged by is how does the audience feel with these people? And he said, just know the audience feels great with this group of people. So don't worry about each individual episode, And a lot of it is just garden variety anxiety or insecurity or all the things that we battle that you kind of think like getting on a popular show will take away, but it actually just pours fertilizer on it and makes you a little more. It's not something you're allowed to say that much. But there was so much that I was grateful for, and it was also a challenge to be, I was playing a guy who sometimes made me really uncomfortable. I wanted to not be so raw or vulnerable in the midst of, sometimes I felt like he had to be the guy who was so sincere, and then everyone got to like punch him in the face, sometimes literally. And I value like sincerity, if you've seen my movies, and I value these things, and I feel like in some ways I influence the character just because I resonated with some of those things, and the creators got to know me pretty well. That's also not to say that I felt like that character was me. I felt like, especially as the series went on, I felt like a great distance from him. But there was some challenging stuff to play a character like that for a lot of people to see, because a lot of people love that character, and there are some people that really don't. And I always felt responsible, like, sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. But it was an interesting challenge to be like a man and asked to be a sincere man, a vulnerable man for a lot of people to see. And I feel like it was kind of this trial by fire because it was good for me to kind of open myself up to both ridicule and praise. I mean, I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point, but I've lost the plot. But I would just tell myself to calm down, but I think that was what I would tell myself all the time. And also to know that what's happening today is not as it always will be. Like, I had this revelation last month where I was like, wow, I've never had a single emotion that's ever stuck around permanently. Like, never once. Like, every time I get like a little depressed, I'm like, well, here it is, depression, adulthood, I'm gonna be depressed forever, okay. And then if I get happy, I'm like, I finally cracked life, I've solved it, and I'm gonna be happy forever. Like, it's delusional, And just getting a little more kind of zen about surfing the waves of... Christopher Reeve, the actor who played Superman and was paralyzed, when he said this amazing thing in an interview that I've never forgot. He said, I've learned... They asked him what was the thing he learned. He said, I've learned to pay less attention to my moods. And I thought that was such a great thing because I'm so bullied by my moods. Like, I think like whatever's going on is like determinative of something much larger, and it's just a mood. So I don't know, be a better surfer, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for taking my questions. I'm sure there are many of you in the audience who have several questions for Josh. I'm going to please ask you to keep your questions brief because I'd like to go through as many as possible.
What's going on with those people? Are you watching that? Yeah? Okay.
We can take questions from there, don't worry.
Oh, it's good to see you guys. Hi. Felt bad.
Please keep your questions brief and please wait for a microphone to reach you. So on that note, are there any questions for Josh Radnor? Yes, gentleman at the back.
Oh. How much did, one more time? Oh, the growing distance from him? I don't know that I was consciously thinking of Ted when I was writing liberal arts. I was more thinking about what it means to love and miss college. And then it became a kind of richer exploration of time and nostalgia and the uses of the benefits and the drawbacks to liberal arts education, like the life of a mind and how that can, if it's not connected to the heart, so that how you can get in some trouble just being kind of overly trapped in the head. So I don't know that it was exactly a response to Ted as much as it was just me wanting to say a couple things. Like I look at the films a little bit like books, that I'm just writing from the place that I am right now. Like I would never make Happy Thank You More Please now. It's just not where I'm at. But I'm so glad I made it. And I there's a scene with me and Pablo Schreiber in there where Sam in the first film says something like, someone had told him, every 5 years you realize what an idiot you were 5 years ago, but it goes on all the time. And I put that in there in some ways because I felt that film is, I love that film, but it's also, it was pretty open, and it was saying a couple things that I just hadn't seen in movies that I wanted to say. But I thought to myself, in 5 years I might think this is really silly, but I wanted to remind myself, 5 years from that point you're going to think whatever you're thinking silly. And I think it's a nice reminder that we should be updating ourselves enough and learning enough and shedding old patterns enough that every 5 years you kind of go, what was I thinking 5 years ago? Thanks.
Next question. Yeah, no, is there a hand up? No, I don't think so. Yes, gentleman at the back.
That's a great question. You guys are smart. Yeah, that's a great question. My editor, Michael Miller's his name, he's edited both my movies, and he always laughs because I would always say, when he does that, I want him to leave the room earlier or something, and I would always talk about my character in the third person, and it's not conscious, it's more that I'm trying to think, I'm just looking at everyone and trying to keep them in the world of it. I certainly would never refer to a character, especially Ted, as I, because it was so clear to me that I was, as I said, contractually, filling contractual obligations by saying these lines. I know that sounds so antiseptic or something, but it is true. The facts of it are true. But I also think there's something just psychologically healthy about knowing that you are playing a character. I did a play right before I did the pilot of How I Met Your Mother that was a really intense emotional experience, and an actress who I really loved advised me before I had to go on, in my dressing room, just imagine a door, and it was the door to the character, and I would close my eyes and I would step through it. That was it. There was no chanting. I mean, I just stepped through a door. I would go do the play. I would come back to my dressing room, have a moment, step back through the door, and shake it off. Because I feel there is something strange and ritualistic and kind of shamanically mysterious about acting. I used to think that I was much cooler about it and there wasn't so much transference. But the fact is, if you play a certain role, it takes you some time to shake it off. Or if you're really kind of going there, you gotta find a way to be psychologically healthy, and that's why I think I do that. But I don't know. Cool.
Next question.
What about her in the front?
Yes, yourself. Can we get a mic there, please? Right here.
You're looking across like no, not those people. I felt bad. Yeah.
What do you think you have most in
common? What do I have most in common with him? Well, there were a couple of things that were, like we're both from Ohio. And that was just, when I went into the audition, Carter is from Cleveland, and that's why the character is from Cleveland. It had nothing to do with me. And I said, I'm from Columbus. Trying to, get the role. And we both went to liberal arts colleges, which is another weird thing. We look a lot alike. You know, some of it I feel like I have certain things that line up, and other things I really don't. And I really liked. I think sometimes he was a terrible example in Love and Romance, like really bad, like not healthy. But I think he was one of the great friends in television. Was there a child that just? I think they're watching YouTube clips back there. You know, he was a great friend. You know, he was a great, loyal person, and that's a quality that I really love, and I hope to be a good friend. He was, you know, if he wanted something, he went after it. You know, he wasn't a timid person, even though he could get overly thoughtful about things. He would go after things. One of the things that was a little bit hard for me, and I talked to Carter and Craig about it, but I don't think he was envisioned as this intellectually pompous guy at the start. And I would show up, you know, with a crossword puzzle or reading a David Foster Wallace book, and I went to college and I liked talking about ideas. And then the next thing I know, he starts becoming this intellectually pompous guy. But it was hard for me because they took something that I consider to be a virtue, which is like curiosity about ideas and intellectual debate and all these things, and they turned it into something to be made fun of, which I actually liked playing a lot of the pretentious stuff. It was really fun for me. Like, I loved playing college Ted. Like, he was one of my favorite characters. Because it was so ridiculous. But I also think it spoke to a little bit of a kind of American anti-intellectual streak, which the Wisconsin guy laughed. And that, you know, that was a bit of a bummer for me, because when I go out in the world and if I say something that, you know, has polysyllabic words in it or something, people are like, "Oh, you're just like Ted," and it's like, no, I'm a person who wants to talk about ideas or relay something in a certain way. But then, the more they get to know you, they start kind of folding in little things. And I've talked to people on other series who've had this experience, and it's a little unnerving because they start to kind of collapse you with the character just the teeniest bit. So it's always been like this weird little challenge to, like in that psychologically healthy way, to go, okay, that's him, that's not me. The problem is, you guys know me a lot better from all the episodes you've watched than you do from us just having a conversation at the Cambridge Union Society. Is that what this is?
Yes, that is.
So, but that said, you know, there's a lot more I admire about him than not. You know, I think it was really fun to play something like what is happening? Was a child just born up there? That'd be headline worthy. Child born at Josh Radnor talk. Oh, it is a child who was just born. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay.
Next question, please. Are there any questions upstairs? Yes, lady at the back. 1 second, can you just wait for a microphone to reach you?
You can do it, yeah. The fire warden's coming. What a cool room this is.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
Hi, I thought if you could clarify this for me, because I've always been confused. Because at the end, Ted was in love with Robin. So was he always in love with Robin when he was with the mother?
Oh.
Can I say something? I don't mean this to be rude at all. It's fake. But I say that because you're treating it like a real person who is has this whole, you know, subtextual thing going on. And really, it was like, oh, what episode is this? Cool. Oh, I got coffee. Okay, my call is at what time? Okay, great. Put my, and then I do the thing. That's not to say I didn't take it seriously, but I'll tell you from my perspective of doing all the scenes with Kristen, I thought he really loved her. I mean, I played it, I didn't play it like, oh, I'm thinking about Robin. You know what I mean? Oh. At this lighthouse, I'm thinking about Robin proposing. So I just played it. I kind of would look at what the demands were that week, what was being asked of me, and then I would just do it and try to do it as fully as I could. But my way of saying it's fake, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like saying to an author, like, well, what happens after the last page? And it's like, nothing. Nothing happens. That's where the story ends,
Next question. Are there any more questions on upstairs? Yes. Lady at the back.
I love these fluorescent vested people.
All right, hello.
Hello.
If you can't tell, I'm also American, so it's great to have you here.
Where are you
nice
from?
accent.
Where are you from?
I'm from Pennsylvania, but I go to school in North Carolina.
Oh.
Yes, it's an exchange program. But anyhow,
okay.
You keep mentioning how much you love college. Over and over again, you've said this. And I think a lot of us are just starting our college journeys, so what advice would you offer to the college freshman entering Cambridge today?
Apart from joining the Cambridge Union, of course.
Well, Jesse says something, my character that I played in liberal arts says something to this kid, Dean, who's this depressed but quite brilliant student. And he's unhappy at college, and he says, this is the only time you get to do this. You get to read books and talk about ideas, and that's your only responsibility. I think he says something like, you can tell everyone here you're a poet and no one will punch you in the face. Maybe that was a reference to the How I Met Your Mother thing. I don't know. But I think it's a really special time, but it's hard to know you're in a special time until it's in the rearview mirror a little bit. I've actually even had that thought about the series, like, oh, it was hard to know, even though we knew, it's hard to contextualize something until it's done. But if I was doing college all over again, what's interesting is I read The Great Gatsby for the first time like 2 years ago. I just hadn't read it when they'd asked me to read it. And I think sometimes you're asked to read things too young. Some of the stuff you're reading here is incredibly dense, and some 18 or 19-year-old minds are ready for that stuff, and some aren't. And it doesn't, but it's all on the reading list, so you're supposed to read it. But I read that book, and I had such a stupid response to it. I was like, The Great Gatsby is a great book, like as if I was the first person to ever say that. But it was really like new to, I was like, this is such a good book. Have you guys heard of this book, The Great Gatsby? But I feel like if I did college now, I would be so much more, I'm so much more ready to absorb things, and I have so much more life experience. That's the thing, is you're asked to read like the Odyssey or something. Like you're asked to read stuff that is like the whole of life crammed into one book. But you haven't lived that much, really. I mean, by the time you're 18, I mean, you've had your time, I don't want to take anything away from you. But once you've tasted, a little failure, a little success, once you've had your heart broken, once you've broken someone's heart, you have a different understanding of like poetry and all these things. But I think I would just read everything. Like I read half of everything, I would read everything, and I would, I would drink less. And I think I would just be able to take it a little more seriously. But I think it's also good I try to do this thing where I'll realize how unpresent I am. Like I'll be in my thoughts, I'll be thinking of the future or the past or obsessing about something. And then I'll be like, and this is also, I keep referencing my own work, but there's this moment in liberal arts where he's listening to classical music and he hears this Wagner, the Tannhauser Overture, and he's walking, he's crossing the street and he suddenly realizes like he has hands and feet and he's alive and this music is blaring. And I think it's a real great challenge to give ourselves, to be like, this is all that's happening. Like I'm sitting on a plush leather chair and I'm talking to a bunch of awesome, Cambridge students, and or maybe you just floated in, but to remind myself like this is happening. So as you're walking, just feel your footsteps and and feel whatever, your backpack or whatever you're carrying, and just to remember, just even sensorially, is that a word? Like what it feels like to be alive when you're in college. Because you'll look back and you'll realize you weren't all that present, and that is, I think, a source of sadness. So the more you can kind of just remind yourself that this is happening. The other thing that used to happen to me was I would think that I was preparing for life, but life is happening right now. Like you're not getting anywhere, you're not gonna be anywhere later, you're only gonna be here. So the more you can kind of train yourself to just be here, the more you can kind of recognize the riches of what's in front of you, I think.
Next question. Right. Let's
How are you picking people? Like, what is your
randomly,
method?
completely randomly.
Let's go ahead. All right, that guy, and then you'll go next, yeah? But he's like going crazy. Oh, it is, oh. Oh. Does that come up a lot when you introduce yourself? Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Trust me. I know.
Comedy is something that a lot of times is different. And we have this in America. What do you think about How I Met Your Mother and as such bipartisan all types of
Yeah. I have no idea. But it's not just the UK. I mean, it's popular, it's wildly popular in Germany and France. You know, I've met, like, Iran? I know this. You said Iran, yeah? Yeah, I talked to some artists from Tehran through this weird thing I did in an art gallery. It's not worth going into. But they said it's so popular in Iran. I met in India, during a puja at an ashram, a guy came up to me and said, "Excuse me, are you Ted Mosby?" And I was like, I was in like a thing, like I had a dot on my head, and it was so confusing. And you know, I was in Africa and Tanzania and flying to what's it called? Starts with a Z. Never mind. Zanzibar. And the guys in the plane, right? You know, the guys who arranged the planes were huge How I Met Your Mother fans. So something about it gets through to people. I don't know. It's not just New Yorkers in their 20s who like it. And I think it has that, like, a curious mix of humor and heart, you know, kind of head and heart. Like, it's really super funny, but it was one of the few multi-camera sitcoms with a laugh track that could reliably make you cry. And I think that if you can, making people laugh is one thing, but if you can make them laugh and then make them cry in the same episode, I think you feel a certain loyalty to it, because we really want to experience emotions as much as we kind of deaden ourselves and just stare at our phones all day long. Like, we want to feel life kind of pulsing through us, and we want to, you know, feel sad and happy and feel we're transforming. And I think that How I Met Your Mother was ultimately like the ending notwithstanding, it was an incredibly optimistic show. And it was about people growing up. And everyone's growing up and hopefully, you know, trying to be better and get out of their own way. And that's what attracts me to the show. And I think that's just a stab. I don't know. But I'm happy that so many people like it. Yeah.
Over here.
Fire warden?
Over there, please.
Why does yours say fire warden? Are you the actual fire warden? Oh, you didn't even know it said
They
that.
all say that, actually.
Oh, they do? Well, no, but hers doesn't.
Not in the front, but I think it says.
Yeah. This is what I mean by be present. Just get distracted by everything that comes your way. Yeah. Do I miss playing him? Not quite. But not in a... No, 208 episodes, I kind of felt like I explored that. Like, I did it, you know? I've seen probably like half the episodes, if that. There's a lot I haven't seen. So what's really funny is, like, you guys know the show a lot better than I know the show. So you'll come up and say, like, in episode 27, you know, you had half a beer left. And I'm like, what? I don't even remember the show. I don't remember the episode. But I like the, people will write me on Twitter and say, I just finished watching the series for the 4th time. What do I do with my life now? And I'm like, go outside. Get some air. See people, So I haven't seen all the episodes, but I remember being there for a lot of them. Yeah.
Next question, lady in the front, right behind. Okay.
Oh, that was nice of you.
That's very nice of you.
Yeah. Did I? Really? How? Where in liberal arts? I don't know if that's true. I never ripped off How I Met Your Mother consciously, but the idea being that dating someone is like getting a kind of degree in the person.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you.
Well, sometimes you just audit a class. Oh, is that might not be a British term, where you're like not really in the class, you're kind of, never mind. I'm making a like relationship joke that's not working. So you're asking me about relationships like? Oh, no. I added very little. The episodes were incredibly tightly scripted. So we would always be 4 or 5 minutes long. So it's not like they wanted us like, hey, just let's see where this goes. Like the episodes were like puzzles. So they were really, puzzles, that was a thing, right? They needed a certain kind of tightness, and there wasn't a lot of room for us to horse around. But Carter and Craig also, they went to Wesleyan, a liberal arts college, and I was really good friends with them. So we shared a lot. We have a similar background, and we had similar concerns about things, and we were very different in certain ways. So no, I don't know that any of that was intentional. Yeah.
Fantastic. We have time for 2 more questions.
What about Wisconsin?
Yes, let's take Wisconsin. No, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hi.
Well, first obviously Miss College life. But secondly,
Well, I suppose Puzzles is a really great name, right? I mean, it's people. I don't know. You know why? I stopped drinking, so I don't think I've been opening a bar. Did that bring the mood down? What happened to him? No, I don't know. But congrats on your per capita record. It's very exciting.
When did you stop drinking?
I've done it a couple times.
And you always go back in the end?
No, I haven't drank for about 15 months. It's been nice. Although I was in London and I was like, man, I want to drink. Like something about British people. In a good way. Yeah.
We actually have time for 2 more questions because that question was brief. So please raise your hands. Yes, gentleman at the back. Yes, that's you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. First, I'd like to say thanks for the inspiration behind the name of my band, Puzzles.
Oh, nice.
And secondly,
Why is it called Puzzle? That's the puzzle, right? Yeah. I do remember that
we
part.
actually ripped it off from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
But seriously, so you played the character of Ted for 9 years, and I mean, I'm assuming a lot of people here would have spent years and years watching it, and had bits of characters kind of come into their lives, like bits of the way they speak or how they act.
Yeah.
Did you find that any of Ted or any of the other characters kind of worked their way into your life, or did you manage to keep them completely separate?
I think largely separate, but when I would talk to Carter and Craig, they're kind of catchphrasey. I mean, they're proper funny people. So they would say certain things that would kind of sound like, I think in some ways, and I don't know if this is true because I think they both wrote everything, but like Carter was more of the gatekeeper of Ted and Craig was more of the gatekeeper of Marshall. Like Craig wrote a lot of Marshall's like ghost stuff and Bigfoot stuff and alien stuff, you know, which I always thought was so funny. I was asked, you know, what character do you like kind of the best? And it wasn't, I don't know if that's even the right word, but I always thought Marshall was like so dear and funny and weird and great. And just the way Jason's weirdness met that character's weirdness was so terrific. But no, I don't know that I had any sort of, there wasn't that much of a bleed. It almost more worked the other way where I would lend Ted a lot of my mannerisms or vocal things, and then I almost felt like I had given them away and I couldn't then use them because I would seem too much like him. It's been a super weird process. But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we have time for one more question, unfortunately.
We can take two, right?
We can take two.
We'll take two more.
We'll take two more. Shall we go with the lady at the back right there?
Yeah, the lady in the back. These better be the best questions, right?
No pressure.
Hi, I feel so much pressure being like the last question.
Oh, it's okay. You can ask a bad question.
So you've like directed and written, and you were in it as well. Yes, thank you more, please.
Happy, thank you more, please.
Liberal
Yeah.
Arts. I want to ask, have you always wanted to direct and write, or was that something that you sort of wanted to do after acting and being like, oh, I want to be behind the camera?
I figured I'd get around to it eventually. It happened a little sooner than I thought it would. And I found the whole process to be fascinating. I found writing the script to be fascinating, prepping the movie, casting the movie, directing the movie, working with a production designer, a cinematographer, wardrobe, then post-production, you know, getting all the footage together, working with the editor. There's so much that you don't realize goes into. That's why I could never be a critic, because I know how much goes into making even a bad film, that for me to sit there and take 20 minutes and be like, terrible. It's like, well, a lot went into that. I mean, I know we should have standards and all that, but I remember my first day of shooting Happy, Thank You More, Please, and I didn't know what was going on. My second day, I kind of figured it out, but I was saying the wrong terms for certain things. The third day, I started to be like, okay, I've learned some things the last 2 days. The fourth day, I was like, I think I love this. Like, it was this really quick process of realizing that my particular skill set is actually really well suited to be a film director, because there's the director, a famous director of the Berlin Philharmonic, Herbert von Karajan, said when he was in music school, he was a piano player, and he said, someone said to him, to get the sound you want, the bigness of the sound, you're going to need a whole orchestra, not just one instrument. And I thought that's such a great metaphor for wanting to, rather than just being an actor, which is, you know, being a violinist. Hey. But, you know, I love being able to conduct an orchestra, because you get all the other instruments, and everyone is specialized and doing great and making you look terrific. So I found that even just beyond the artistic stuff, community building, you know, knowing how to talk to different people in different ways, knowing how to say a little less or a little more when it's needed. It's a very political job, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, you know. So it was just a terrific, it's a terrific thing for my skill set, and I loved it, and I want to do a lot more of it. That said, like I said, I still want to keep acting, but I feel like being a film director is maybe a more merciful way to age.
Final question. Yes, lady at the back.
Did you not want to be called on? I think it's you. Hi.
please don't say it's the end of the show.
Yeah. Sometimes we would shoot outside. We shot on the Fox lot on Pico Boulevard, and they have this New York street that's just like two little, turns, and everyone shoots there, and you dress it up in a different way to make it look a different way for every show. And we shot a lot out there. Anytime you see an outside scene, almost entirely it was shot on this little thing. And sometimes we'd have rain machines or big cranes to get shots from up above. And there was something about that felt so old-timey Hollywood, like I have made it in show business. Like it really was this very cool thing for like a guy from Ohio to be able to shoot out there. And it never lost its romance for me when we'd go out to that street. I remember having a really fun time when there was like a hurricane episode where we were like jumping in the rain, and it was the water was freezing, and we were wearing these boots, and we would dump out the water from our boots in between scenes. But it was so euphoric and silly, and we were just dancing in the rain. I remember that. There have been other times. I mean, when I did shoot the finale, and it was meeting the mother on the platform, which was actually the last scene we shot on the last day, which is like, come on. Like it was a little, everyone's like, but there was something about like approaching her as she held the yellow umbrella that I don't even know if I could fully appreciate the moment, but it felt so iconic, and I knew that it would mean a lot to a lot of people. I didn't know it would infuriate as many people as it did, but that was really special. And then there's just other times where I remember laughing so hard, and just kind of being like, I can't believe this is my job. Like, this is my job. This is, sometimes I would wake up and the first thing of the day would be like a breakfast scene or like a scene in bed, and you'd be in pajamas, and they'd be like, what cereal do you want? What coffee do you want? And they'd bring you, and you're like, this is awesome, and you'd be like so comfortable in your clothes. And, I've told a couple people about this, but Kobe and I had this bit. Kobe Smulders is an entirely delightful person, but she also has like a wildly creative and disgusting imagination. And we had this thing where we had a bit whenever Ted and Robin had just made love, like it was their post-coital scenes, we had a few of them, and she started doing this thing where she would tell me exactly what we had just done. It was so disgusting that I can't, and then they would be like, right when I was like as bright red-faced and couldn't breathe, they'd be like, action, and I'd be like, sorry, she just said something to me that I'm never gonna be able to shake. But that was like a bit we had. So there's like little, things that develop because you're with these people all the time, and it was only it wasn't just the five of us, there were always 70 people around. I mean, that's what you kind of forget. It's not just five of us sitting around. There's a lot of people around. So you do get to know the crew really well. I mean, some of those people are like really, they're really dear to me, as well as the cast. So a lot of it was just the offstage antics, which were nutty, which you guys can see some of on the blooper reel. But I'm on those less because I don't work blue. I don't have like Neil and Jason are disgusting, so they would say all those things. But yeah, I mean, I think it was there'll be moments that'll just come back to me, and I'll go, oh yeah. Or if I have to drive that way, I'll be like, oh my God, I drove this so many times. But ultimately, I'm intensely grateful. Without that show, I wouldn't be here with you guys. So thanks for watching it. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our second speaker event of Michaelmas Term. As I mentioned earlier, this is our 200th anniversary year, and the Michaelmas team put a lot of thought into who we would like to get to come and speak here. It's been such a pleasure having you here. I really hope you enjoyed your visit to Cambridge.
I have very much.
And on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to thank you for speaking at the Cambridge Union.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I have a couple of announcements to make, and then we'll be off.